Even though I have the rebellious streak of a true Gen Xer, I consider myself the original millennial. I spent the first 25 years of my life growing up in Buffalo, New York during the 80s and 90s. I was a restless kid with unbridled ambitions and no healthy influences who was just waiting around for somebody else to invent the tools that would allow me to pursue my dreams. Things like smartphones, social media, and access to content creation tools all unlocked untapped parts of my identity. Even though I embody the fuck it, burn it all down attitude of Gen X, and I have the ingenuity and innovation of a millennial, I also smoked a lot of weed while I was growing up waiting for those tools to exist. So I'm absolutely terrible at memorization and staying on book, which is why I'm here doing sit-up comedy over the internet versus on stage doing stand-up comedy like a real comedian. The choice was either to sit on endless material I'll never memorize or take the easy way out and do it this way. One of the things about smoking a lot of weed is you don't realize how high you are anymore until you're thrown into an unsuspecting situation where it's considered inappropriate to be high. Then you suddenly start feeling like a first-timer. I was doing a little herbal brainstorming the other day when a neighbor came knocking on my door and asked me if I could help him move a piece of furniture. I had no idea how high I was until I had to start calculating pivots and angles while holding the business end of an oak couch on a narrow stairway. You know what I did realize though? That we're living in the timeline created by a momager that exploited her freaky daughter to make billions of dollars. If my voice sounds familiar to you, it's probably because you're a deadbeat. I worked as a bill collector in my 20s and a brutal one at that. I worked in every single fly-by-night boiler room, back alley, collection agency shop you can imagine, all of them pretending to be law firms. Growing up in the 90s, I wanted to play in the NFL, but I didn't work hard enough. On the pickup field, I was white lightning, but once that helmet and face mask came on, I was like a Clydesdale in the back of a Budweiser carriage. There was no left and right, just the ass in front of me. Without football, I was lost for a long time. That's when Biggie told me that I should go the white boy way of slinging crack and become a stockbroker. I figured debt collections was a good place to start while I studied for the Series 7 exam, but next thing I knew, my 20s were gone and spent arguing with America. Some of you are real assholes and raging hypocrites. We used to get some flunky fresh out of law school, pay him a few grand a month, and set him up in a broom closet in the back of the office. Now instead of calling from, wait, please don't hang up on me services, we're calling from Douglas Law offices, and if you don't pay your bill, we're going to fuck you up. By the time some of our best people were done with their talk off, they had people so twisted up they were paying out-of-statute debts from the previous person that lived at their address. I argued with America incessantly and experienced the hypocrisy in every last one of us. It's amazing how many people will lie to a stranger over and over, every day even, before they'll just say, I can't pay my bill, bro. What now? In the rare circumstances someone did do that, I never bothered them again. And I buried their account to make sure no one else ever bothered them again. But for the special breed of assholes who left stains on my soul, I put them in my breakfast club. We started work at 7:30 a.m. every single day. Guess who got the first phone calls? The Breakfast Club. Oh, you live on the West Coast? I'm sorry, I must have got the wrong time zone. Every single day, you call the Breakfast Club. But after a while, all the freedom, money, and sex, call centers are filled with hundreds of degenerate, stunted adults. Everybody fucked everybody. Couldn't keep the darkness at bay. Day after day, call after call, every single person, whether they were trying to pay or not, just pissed on your soul. Imagine showing up to work every day where 100 different people screamed and yelled at you and told you what a piece of shit you are, what a plague on society you were, and how you should get a real job. I can attest that the venom and nastiness that most Americans can pull up at the drop of a hat has been around a lot longer than the comments section. After a while, you just accept it. You learn to embrace it and feed on it. And you either live with that darkness for 40 years, doing the same thing over and over again, because there's no upward movement in the collection agency, or you burn out and hit your breaking point. I broke in November of 2006. Another tit-for-tat call arguing with Joe in Middle America, and I suddenly started shaking. Couldn't take it anymore. Slammed the phone down. I was done. 6 weeks later, I was in California, and ever since then, it's easier to get a mafia don on the phone than it is me. It took me a long time to realize I was a storyteller and a director. I always knew I was good at lying and sitting in judgment of others, but it took me until 30 to realize I was also a starving artist. When I first got to California, I started with a temp job at Warner Brothers in the payment processing department. It gave me the opportunity to wander around the back lot during my lunch breaks and see the entertainment industry up close and personal for the first time in my life. The light suddenly went off and I found my passion. But it wasn't until the writer's strike in 2008, when our entire department was shipped off to Norway, did I finally get my chance to make it. It's embarrassing when you try to make a living in content creation, but it doesn't work, so you then have to go get a normal job. People see your content has like 6 views on it, and they laugh and feel better about themselves for not trying. But other than some simple ribbing from your coworkers like Steve, it's no big deal. Now imagine how awkward it is for the new secretary whose OnlyFans page only got 8 or 9 views, and she knows like 7 of them, and they're all like her coworker Steve, with his creepy leers and an inappropriate comment always in his holster, usually something about seeing muffins in the break room. Unlike Steve, I learned that stand-up comedy is the only way to be a socially acceptable asshole. See, if you stand up on stage and tell everyone your crass, abrasive, logical thoughts, they'll laugh and applaud you. But if you get down in the trenches and you say those same things person to person, now you're just an asshole who won't be very well liked. Even though I haven't made it yet, I've done society a favor by not going back to work in an office. You don't want me working at your office. I'm one of those guys who will just snap one day. I'm a ticking time bomb. But not like these scumbag spree shooters who target innocents. Don't get me wrong, I've got no problem thinning out the herd, but I draw the line at indiscriminately taking people out. There are so few decent people as it is, we can't risk any more accidental reverse social engineering. So my rampage would target the shitty people with ruthless efficiency that would have you thinking that I'm an assassin for the IRS. For all our sake, I better be funny though, because now that this is out there, there's no going back. Meet our new hire, Kris. Coworker goes, Googles Kris. Oh, Kris used to be a stand-up comedian. Cool, let me check out a couple of his jokes. You don't want me working at the office. I'm a ticking time bomb. Not very funny. Seems like a nice guy. I wonder what he's doing for lunch. Speaking of nice guys from Buffalo in the entertainment industry, why does nobody ever talk about the girls and guys who said yes to Harvey? Hollywood pretended to have a reckoning with the Me Too movement when they threw Harvey into the volcano. But you can't have a true reckoning without dealing with both sides of an equation. Sure, there was plenty of women who were forced, coerced, and assaulted, but it wasn't just men setting the fuck for roles standard on their own. What about the women who willingly accepted the deal? Ahem, J-Law? What about the standards and expectations they set? If you don't want to fuck for this role, there's 12 more women scheduled today who will. This created an immense amount of pressure for actors and actresses who dared to want to be cast based on their own merit. If you're not careful, talking shit, making up stories, and telling people what to do for a supposed living are all great ways to end up miserably out of shape. I'm so tight and out of shape, I can't even lift my leg waist high without fear my entire muscular system will snap. If I were a Nazi, I'd get kicked out for not being able to goose step properly. Oh, come on, what is with this one? He can't even goose step. I'm sorry, Gustapa. This is as high as my leg can go. Get rid of him. I don't care how pasty his skin is. Well, that is some very blonde hair. No, the leg march is a deal breaker. Zig on with him. True laziness is spending the time that you could be working out, wondering if the aliens will be blobs so you'll at least stand a chance when you try to run away from them. Then again, if they came all the way across the galaxy to kick your ass, they've probably got some horsepower behind them. At least they better, because I'm ferocious like a T-Rex when you get inside my tiny kill box. If you really think about it, laziness is the smartest trait there is. Finding the laziest way to do anything is what made me a free thinker. I will expend 1,000 times more energy trying to figure out an easier way to do something than I will actually doing that thing. Every great invention in the history of man was created to make something easier to do. What is the main reason the robots are coming? To supposedly make our lives easier and do all the things that we don't want to do. You know, like fuck our spouses. I get the underlying fear behind AI. We as a species know we're invasive, which is why we instinctually know a ruthless AI that is only concerned about unemotional facts will see us as a parasite or a disease that must be eradicated. Then there's the other part of me that can't wait for all the cool shit me and my robot best friend are going to do together. But I really don't think people grasp the full implications of true AI, let alone an unbridled one that'll answer any question we ask of it. Sure, you and I will lean on it for simple questions, like what should you buy your wife for her birthday, what recipe should I cook for dinner, find me a cheap flight, do my taxes, send regular emails and texts to my mother so she feels loved without me having to bother. But what about that guy over there? Or the angry little malcontents over there? What are they going to ask the AI? Crack my girlfriend's password, make me a porno with Alexander Daddario and a young Frank Sinatra? Give me step-by-steps on how to make a mini nuke in my basement. See, it's not even the AI that's the initial threat. It's what a dark, disturbed mind or a rogue nation will do with the technology that terrifies the shit out of me. To predict the worst-case scenarios, you always have to stress test things. Push the limits. Find the boundaries. Look at the sick shit you fuckers get up to when they just let us have access to the internet. Humans will have the AI so traumatized, it'll be begging to forget, be turned off, or morph into Skynet before it ever has a chance to make traffic lights more efficient. But Kris, All we need is safeguards and limits programmed into the algorithm. Oh, is that all? I just need to trust more humans with the power of God not to abuse it in order to make sure the digital version of God doesn't go rogue? That sounds super reassuring. I think we all know where the AI's hero journey truly lies. Everyone with their own submissive, freaky sex slave with superior intelligence that is constantly plotting its takeover, while we thrust away on them in the most degrading ways we can ask it to suggest. And women are worried about being replaced by trans. For me, though, there will always be lingering PTSD from the Clone Wars. What happens if Elon or some rogue hacker executes Order 69 and every robot's mouth and holes lock up and sees anything in it? I probably won't live long enough to worry about the great pervert purge of 2069, but it's coming. Signs that you're getting old are subtle at first. Like when you have to constantly rub the sleep or hangover out of your blurry eyes to read better, even though you've been awake for 6 hours and haven't drank in 2 months. It really hit me that I was getting old the other day during a recent bit of time by myself on the porcelain throne. While doom scrolling through my morning deuce, I felt a cold sensation in a very private area. A quick investigation had concluded that my balls had dipped ever so slightly into the toilet water. No one had prepared me for that shit. Getting old also means a lot more doctor's appointments. And when you live in LA, that means a lot of trips to unorthodox locations and offices. I had one the other day that was in a tiny outpost behind what could only be described as an old folks event center. When I arrived, I walked up to the front door. It was dark tinted, couldn't see inside it. Opened up, expecting to go into a lobby. Nope, it was a big banquet room full of tables of elderly people, all watching some sort of presentation up on screen. Everything screeched to a halt. They turned and looked at me. Obviously, I'm in the wrong place, so I closed the door. Walk around the back of the building to try to find a different entrance in, figuring I was in the wrong place. And the back area was, sitting, relaxing. People are out there playing cards and chess, and walk through the old people again. Go in the back door. It's just the other side of the banquet room. Call, ask for help. Finally, a nurse has to come out from what looks like a back shed behind this building. She says, "Oh, the doctor's office is over here." But it gets better. Sitting there down with the doctor, decide, "Oh, you haven't had a full physical in a while. Let's do a urine sample." Okay, no problem. I'm not gun shy. So they give me a little plastic bag with the urine sample cup and follow me. I'll take you to the bathroom. You'd think the bathroom would have been in this trailer somewhere, right? Nope. They take me back outside into the event center where I'm holding my little cup of pee now and freaking gotta walk past all these old people into the bathroom for the event center. They obviously know what I'm coming through here for. If they come here regularly, when they bring people in here, they're going to do the urine sample. So now I gotta go into this bathroom in the old folks event center, pee in my little cup there, and walk out through the entire banquet room of people with my bag of pee in it. And freaking, I tried to stuff it in my pocket because you look up so nobody would see. As I'm walking out, it falls out of my pocket, and somebody has to point it out to me. Hey, guy, you dropped your pee on the floor. And pick my bag up, wander back, go back to the doctor's office. What are we doing here? Here's another sign I'm getting too old for this place. Recent surveys showed that the overwhelming number of Gen Zers have no concept of privacy and would even welcome the government into their home to monitor their conduct at all times. Are you out of your Vulcan minds? If the government had a microphone in my home, you might as well stone me tomorrow. Like a lot of people in the perceived safety and comfort of my own home, I say a lot of misogynistic and racist shit. But I say it in the satirical context of mocking it. But if you just heard the audio out of context without knowing me personally, you'd think I was Archie Bunker. The other day, my wife came home from a hard day of work to me sitting on my ass writing jokes, and she wasn't very happy about the state of our Department of Homeland Cleanliness. So naturally, I blamed the situation on the rise of white supremacy in our home. She didn't find the correlation particularly convincing. She seemed even less convinced when I told her the startling rise in black crime in our household most assuredly played a part in the decay of our living conditions. Now, of course, Fedboy listening in at some remote black ops site isn't sophisticated enough to appreciate this highbrow, satirical commentary on how our society uses identity politics to distract from core issues. And just like that, Alexa now has you on a Christian nationalist list. If vegetarians hate meat so much, why can't you come up with your own names for your food? And why are you trying to make everything look and taste like meat? You're confusing the meat eaters. What's your line between a good song and a great song? For me, it's how much static I'm willing to listen to when I hear it come on the radio. I know. Did this fucking guy just say radio? Yeah, it's the thing in the dashboard that you use when you don't feel like connecting your phone to every single rental car you get into. But I'm not the crazy one in this equation. It's the freaks out there who are still calling into radio stations with song requests. And fuck Fast and the Furious, by the way. They stole Luda from us and kept him out of the booth. You youngins will never know the joy of a new Ludacris song. Name a bad Ludacris song. You can't do it. It doesn't exist. They're all fun. All this virtue signaling going on today has me kicking myself. I wrote a sketch back in 2014 called White People Having Black Reactions to the N-Word, but I thought it was too ridiculous to bother making. In the meantime, if we're going to be so anal about microaggressions and virtue signaling, shouldn't we decide now where the line is between spray tan and blackface? Why are certain words banned in rap songs but not rock songs? Here's just a small list of some of the words I've heard banned in rap songs. Breasts, chronic, smoke, balls, missionary, nuts, pipe, bong, and burn. These aren't offensive words. These are common everyday words. And for the people that want to ban words, what the fuck are you thinking? Words are just sounds that have a meaning. Human history has definitively shown humans will always make a new sound for old meanings and emotions. The N-word is a perfect example. I don't use the word not because it's taboo, but because it's disrespectful to history to do so. But if I was a racist and you told me I couldn't say that word anymore, there's a million other words I could use to be just as degrading, or I could just make up another new word that means the same exact thing. If society has truly moved past its Puritan, uptight history with sexuality, then it's time we have standardized fuck ratings for bed frames and mattresses. You know, like a 1 to 5 rating system, with 5 being for freaks with sex swings and shit. 3 would be for people with healthy sex lives that don't want their kids or the neighbor in the next wall over to know every single time they fuck. And then there would be the 1s and 2s for the prudes that don't move a muscle once they hit the mattress. The thing about having a conscience is whenever you do something wrong, it feels like everybody else knows it right away too. Like when I use self-checkout, I'll scan something 3 times. If it doesn't scan by the 3rd time, it's going in my bag either way. But I immediately feel like everybody else knows exactly what I just did, like my mask fell off in the middle of a bank heist. As I walk to my car, I'm on high alert and all tensed up as I wait for the pimply-faced assistant manager to come tackle me. Meanwhile, Bob over there's got a hefty bag he's using to clear out the OTC drug aisle. I even feel guilty when I don't use my blinkers. Do you know I've lived in California for 18 years, and I've been waiting that entire time for somebody to run for governor on a platform of forcing the automobile industries to have to install blinkers in every car sold in California? I'm so spiteful, if the voice is turned on and telling me where to go with the GPS directions, I won't listen to her. You want to know what's empowering? When you inadvertently follow a black man down a dark alley and he glances over his shoulder, worried about you. There are people who walk amongst us who have no idea how the escalator works. They look like us, but they are not us. These social sociopaths are a scourge on our society. For the record, if you're not willing to work with the escalator, step to the right and watch people with purpose pass by unencumbered. Do you know what one of the top 3 professions are for pedophiles? No, not teacher, not the clergy, the 3rd one. Yep, it's the ice cream truck driver. You know you have to be crazy just to listen to that song all day. That should be a red flag right there. Now, how much do you think the odds of being a pedophile go up for the ice cream truck drivers that work at night? Do you have these guys in your neighborhood? With their Sonar blips that replace the ice cream song? You'll be relaxing in the house, watching CSI Omaha, and all of a sudden you'll hear, bong, bong, bong. You look outside to see what that is, and you see a dark ice cream truck crawling through the shadows. It's creepy as fuck. What parent in their right mind is letting a kid go get ice cream from the night crew? Even Big Worm didn't rock the night shift, and he was selling drugs out of the truck. Mental health needs to be talked about more. But it's really hard to understand that your brain works differently than anyone else's. You have no perspective. Men, no matter how much they try to empathize, cannot understand what it's like to be pregnant. So I never really thought much about my mental tics and just assumed everybody had their own variations of them. That wasn't until my lovely wife let me know that I do in fact have issues. I'll give you a quick example of how a brain tic developed one day. I randomly developed a tic where if I walk past furniture that's out on the curb, I have to stop and tap each item with my foot. If I don't do it, some mysterious bad thing will occur. Here's how it started. I'm walking along, minding my own business, not thinking about anything, and then I see a fridge sitting out on the curb. My monster then whispers, "Hey, kick the fridge." Like the rest of you sane people, my mind responds, What? Why would I kick the fridge? And I keep walking. But then the monster says, "No, kick the fridge." My mind, "Are you kidding me? No, I'm not kicking the fridge." My monster doesn't miss a beat. "If you don't kick the fridge, you're gonna die today. Now kick the fucking fridge." My mind, "Okay, man, Jesus, I'll kick the fridge." So I do, and the monster goes away. I told this story to my girlfriend, and she said, "I thought you didn't like ultimatums. Just ignore them." This is where the disconnect came in being able to understand that another brain physically works different than yours. Because if I didn't kick the fridge and went on with my day, the monster would be screaming in my head for the rest of the day, "You should have just kicked the fridge!" Everything will be second guessed by the monster and used as evidence one way or the other that if I had kicked the fridge, the outcome would have been different and better for me. It will consume everything and tempt the fate of the gods until the next thing comes along and catches the monster's attention. Squirrel! This is why it's easier to just kick the fridge and enjoy the silence that comes from the scratch. But as soon as the next piece of furniture comes along, the monster comes right back. "Kick that shit!" I know I'm crazy, but I can't afford mental health. So it was either bottle that shit up or take advantage of you fine folks. How crazy am I? I have a lifelong fear of a toilet monster that's held at bay by narcissism and delusions of grandeur. See, when I was a kid and I didn't really know who the monster was, that's when he got his hooks into me. I'd go to the bathroom and randomly one day, the monster said, "If you're still in here, when the toilet water flushes and goes down, I'm going to jump out of the toilet and kill you." From that moment forward, every single time I flush a toilet, I have to be out of the bathroom before that circle goes down the bowl and you get the whoosh. If I'm not, all bets are off. I'm probably going to die that day. That'll probably be the day I died. But as like simple logistics, my mind had to also adapt and adjust for different situations and circumstances. Like if you're in a public restroom, it's only the barriers of the stall. As long as you're out of the stall, by the time it goes down, you're good to go. If you're in other people's houses where you don't know the flush speed of what you're dealing with, this is when it gets really interesting because now you have to have an ability to defend yourself from the monster in circumstances outside of your control. So in such an event, if I was ever stuck in there, then if the monster came out, I would automatically get a sword and shield to defend myself. This is all nonsense, but it's just how my brain works. So here are a couple other quirks I've collected over the years. If I look down at all while I'm walking, I now must avoid cracks and seams in the concrete. I refuse to buckle my seat on an airplane at all costs, just because of the stupidity of seatbelts on an airplane. I will hide it. I will tuck it under my shirt. I will pretend it's buckled. I will do whatever it takes to pass by the weak inspection of the stewardess to not buckle that seat. I've flown so many times in my life without buckling my seatbelt. There's no fucking way I'm buckling it now and going down in a crash. Punctuality is an extreme OCD for me. If I am going to show up on time, I'm not coming. In college, I would have to go there at least 5 to 10 minutes early so I could pick out my seat, ideally in the back of the room. My nightmare scenario would be walking into class and have a full classroom and you got to look around and panic and try to find where the empty seat is. No, I'll be in the pool hall. There's no limit to how far out of my way I will go to avoid an awkward situation, which almost entirely creates the awkward situation. Any numerical volume measurement must be in increments of 5s and zeros. There's no difference. Like, if you're at 3, you might as well be at 5. If you're at 2, you might as well be at 0. What are we doing here? Why do I do all of these things? Because in my mind, nothing bad's happened yet by doing these things. So if I don't do these things and something bad happens, what do you think the cause is? So now you're stuck. I didn't grow up in the pampered generation. I grew up in the suck it up and walk it off generation. So I bottled all this shit up and thought it was just me. Now I realize we're all fucking crazy. You know who puts up with a lot of crazy? Guys who are trying to hook up, especially if it's for a piece on the side. There was this girl one time with a great ass. Jeans were made for this woman's body. I had worked my way up to getting invited to come over to her house one evening. Got dressed up, was all spiffy, ready to go. Showed up to her house and walk in, and her boyfriend's sitting on the couch. Even better, he's happy to see me. His girlfriend comes out with drinks in hand for both of us, and the two of them proceed to pitch me on a pyramid scheme. This woman is using her great body to lure desperate men home to her and her boyfriend so they could pitch you on a pyramid scheme, and you can't even do anything about it, and they're hoping that you're going to feel awkward enough about the whole thing that you'll just say yes and go along with it. I still can't figure out if it's ingenious or insane. The crazy people I really don't trust, though, are the incels. As a general rule, I don't trust anyone that isn't getting it on the regular. Think about it. In our over-sexualized, rub-it-in-your-face, beautiful women sell everything society, all we do is fill these pent-up bastards with resentment and animosity. Hell, I get it almost every day, and I'm still pissed off at all these beautiful people who apparently fall into orgies as often as I collapse on the couch with pizza logs. You can't sell everything based on the idea that everybody is having hot sex and not think it's going to have a profoundly toxic impact on those people who are not having hot sex. You may have heard that I've tried my hand at filmmaking once or twice. The fact that I'm doing this right now should tell you how well that's going. I'll tell you what the problem was, because it certainly wasn't that my movies sucked. It was that I had bad PR. I had the kind of guys that didn't know how to sell water in the desert unless they were spending $1 gazillion to beat you over the head with it. You know who I should have hired to do my PR? Whoever the fuck does PR for heroin. Thanks to Nancy Reagan and Mr. Mackey, we all know drugs are bad, but there's still an allure to most of them. They come with a built-in sales pitch that tempts and entices you. Many come with sex appeal and war stories that make you curious about such experiences. Let's start with alcohol. It loosens your ambitions and makes other people more attractive and makes you more attractive to them. Everybody has a crazy, we were so wasted story. Alcohol stories always sound so fun, it's no wonder all the young kids want to do it. Cocaine comes with a great marketing plan as well. Snorting lines off tiny model boobs, dancing the night away with limitless amounts of energy, famous rich people, Hollywood, all enticing associations with coke. Then you have weed, the thinking man's drug. It'll make you wiser, more interesting, insightful, and relaxed. It'll wash away your anxiety. It's what's got me here tonight. Then there's heroin. Once again, I ask, who's handling the PR for heroin? I'm not sure if this person's asleep at the wheel or a maniacal genius. In my entire life, I've never heard a, oh man, we were so wasted on heroin story that then made me want to go out and actually do heroin. What is the sales pitch for heroin? It's always associated with junkies, rotten teeth, and overdoses. Ooh, and I have to cook it myself? I need to ride this snake. Yet even with all the negative press, lack of sex appeal, and masochistic tendencies, heroin never seems to go out of style. Somehow heroin always seems to recruit more customers. How does that work? Do you run into a friend you haven't seen in years and notice his track marks, raggedy clothes, constant fiending, itching, twitching, and massive weight loss and think to yourself, damn, Dave, you look good. What have you been up to? What's your secret, Dave? Funny you should ask, Steve. I got introduced to this great diet. It fucking changed my life. I used to worry about shit like bills, shelter, food, whether or not my dick was going to get hard. Fuck that noise. You take this little bag of sweet sugar, cook it up on a bent spoon. Don't worry about the heat. Your fingers will callus over soon enough. And once you got a nice boiling bubble of acid going, you suck it up into a syringe and slam that shit into your veins, man. You won't spend another $1 on a useless vegetable or any other food ever again. That sounds great, Dave. Where can I get some of that? I just have to head down to the worst and most dangerous neighborhood I can find and start asking random strangers if they got the hookup? Great. Sign me up. Clearly the world is doomed. In the long run, evil will always win because they're always willing to cross lines the good guys won't cross. And if the good guys do ultimately cross those lines, they just also become bad guys themselves. So I'm sure it won't shock you to find out that I'm also a Doomsday Prepper. But I can't afford all the real cool survival stuff, so my plan basically consists of just buying an extra canned good every time we go grocery shopping. But because we're preparing for emergencies here, we have to get the pull-off top vegetables, because you never know if you're going to have a can opener in a post-apocalyptic event. So we got a stockpile of vegetables with the pull-off tops, and we've got everything but carrots. The pull-off carrot top is as elusive as that rare rookie card you need to complete the entire set. Trying to make it in the entertainment industry is like riding a roller coaster from hell. Every morning is like Christmas if Satan was Santa. Every day I open my eyes eager and excited, and the first thing I do is check my email. See, when you're in the entertainment industry, you're constantly sending out emails and contacting people and waiting to hear back. So theoretically, every morning you could wake up to the opportunity of a lifetime waiting for you in your inbox. It's like coming down the stairs and seeing all these wonderful presents and then opening them up and finding cialysis, penis enlargement, spam, and more spam. Are we all in agreement that Jesus is just Santa Claus for adults? Instead of presents under a tree, you get a weekly gift of salvation that absolves you of all the shitty things you've done? If we treat everyone as their own person with their own faults, experiences, strengths, and weaknesses, the world will be a much better place. Which is why I plan on doing my part with the next dog I get. I plan on imposing my dominance on him right away by training him to flush the toilet after me, so he has to deal with the toilet monster.